It's a completely different ball game to raising the money, because it seems like, if you had one successful fund, it's very easy to raise the second fund. But to raise that first fund without showing that track record as a fund manager, it probably needs a lot of qualities. You need to be persistent, stubborn, probably. But can you talk to us about that journey from having a thesis to actually setting up a fund? Because that's not.
You have to be crazy too. It's it takes a lot of time. Right? It takes a lot of time, and it's not easy at all. It's not easy at all, and you have to have that kind of a little bit of the stupidity that you think like I can do this. When I look back, I didn't understand how much work that is and how risky it is and how long it will take. So so basically, we of course, like you sit down and then you have to gather a team. Of course, you have to start with a team and you try to collect people which works good together. You have to also convince potential investors that you have been working with them over time. So because no one wants to get into a team which is brand new.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you don't know each other, guys. So you will quit after a year and you will get angry at him after 2 years. So an investor will never invest in a team which don't have kind of a very, very strong ties together and a proven work relationship over time. So I have to find that first. And then of course you have to build an advisory network, and of course that is hard. Like, how do you get investors when I don't have experience, I don't have the money, but do you want to be my advisor? That is very, very hard. So you have to work a lot to get a really, really good advisory network on board, and then it's like, okay, how to incentivize your network and how to fund yourself during this time, and then you have to also like start to talk to investors and basically talk to investors saying like, okay, I've never done this before. Can you please give me your money? And so I can invest them in a sector that you don't know. And so the first question is always, have you done this before? No. So you want my money? Are you putting in something on your own money into it? I said, okay, I'm putting in my own money. Yeah, but you're not putting in as much as we do. So it's a constant battle. And then everyone is saying like, okay, this was great. There's a great opportunity. I will see who others will pitch in. And then you have to go with others. And he's with us if you are. Yeah. Then you have to go back and forth, and I'm kind of broke between potential investors for a time. And then in the end, it's always that you have to have someone that really, really believes in you and kind of trusts you. And for us, we were very fortunate to get Farid on board. But I totally understand why they also took a stake in the management company and saying like, you guys haven't done this before. We need a strong hand on the wheel, which I totally understand. But for us, it gave us the opportunity to build a track record, which we needed when we now founded Bluefront in 2020. Because when we founded Bluefront in 2020, we had a proven track record. We have done it before. Myself and Simon had worked together doing it before, and we were successful in doing it. So and even then, it took us at least a year to fundraise. So to be able to get a perfect size, because there's the second hurdle or the second or the 10th hurdle. If you talk about hurdles, it's a really, really long race. But is in relation to it's in relation to the fund size, because you kind of build a strategy. And if you say like, okay, I want to invest in 10 companies. Okay, show me your deal flow. Okay, then you have to work out the deal flow. And you have to do that before they put in the money. So you have to run around talking to the company pretending you have the money even though you don't have the money. And then you do that, you build up a deal flow, potential targets and everything. And then you have a couple of deals, like saying that you need, say, 500 million Norwegian. And what happened if you only get the 300 in the fundraising? Like, basically, it's like, okay, I have 300, which is a pretty good success, but I have sold a strategy which is based on 500. So then you go back to investors saying like, okay, I can only do 3 investments, not 5, and then they will say, then I don't get the diversity, the diversification that I wanted. So then I pull back. So it's it's a constant. You have to be in constant movement and constant talking to investors, speaking to them, update them on how it's going, talking to them about deal flow, opportunities, and hopefully maybe do a deal in the beginning, and then have to give. Maybe you give some perks to the investors which are on board first, and then so there's a constant kind of dealing and back and forth for at least 1 to up to 2 years before you have the fund closed. And that was the case with us too. We started working with this, and it took us like half a year of planning and then 1 year of fundraising, so like close to 2 years before we were like finally closed. Of course, like in the end, there are tail end on a lot of agreements and stuff. So you kind of have you like half a year before we closed, we kind of stopped fundraising, only like working on the investors which said like yes, but we're doing due diligence and supporting them in different side letters and agreements and stuff. So, but it's a long journey. I can talk forever about this journey. I was actually in a meeting in Trondheim the other day, and there was a guy from a Swedish fund, and we ended up talking for 2 hours only on fundraising and like, did you do that? How did you do that? Like, how do you think about that? So, and it was a really, really cool meeting, even though we were there for talking about something completely different. It was just so fascinating and meet people who's been through the same journey.
Is there any point during this journey where you close to giving up, or do you believe that in order to make this you need to sort of never think about that? Because if you think about it now, oh, this is too hard, I can't get the deals right, maybe it's not the right timing, as soon as you start thinking that, it will be so easy to give up. So do you also have to
there's of course like that's why I say you have to have a little bit of stupidity, like you have to just not think about the failure. But of course it's hard when you kind of work without salary, and then you have a family to support and everything. So that's of course very, very hard. And it's a hard sell telling your family, okay, I got a high paid job, but now I'm going to do something really, really risky. And I don't know if that will success or not. But
but it does come with guarantee, right? So you spend so many hours, but it can be worth nothing, right?
It can be worth nothing in the end. So many hours and so much money you put into something that you actually, it's like you don't know. Like you basically don't know until the end. And but for me, it was never like I never thought about giving up. I was just so determined that this is my future, and I really, really wanted so much. And I guess that's how an entrepreneurial brain works. And don't see all the risks and don't consider all the options all the time. You just like look at the target and you go 100%. And myself and Simon, we were very, very good in focusing. So we only spent time on the most important tasks all the time. We're like every day we're like, okay, what is the most important task to do? Like there are 100 things to do, but like what is the most important? Because we got limited time and limited resources. We're only 2 people. There's a lot of nice to do. Yeah. Like, should we do that? Maybe that. Should we talk to him? Maybe it's valuable, but it's a little bit more valuable to talk to him. So let's book a meeting with him and spend time supporting him instead. So that's I think you have to have that entrepreneurial brain, and of course you have to have that structure and working very, very focused, because there's so many opportunities to go in this direction. For example, in deal flow, like there's so many opportunities to just look at cases which is interesting. Yeah. But it's not what I said I would do. So it's like, okay, you got a really, really interesting thing. I think it's really, really cool. But I told the investors to do something else. So goodbye. You have to be very, very strict on the focus.
I think it all comes back to the saying that if you try to do everything, you do nothing.
Yeah.
Right? So that just comes back to the point that you have to focus.
Very, very, that's true. It kind of comes back to that. And we, my partner Simon always said, like, fortune favors the prepared mind. So we try to try to always be prepared on everything we do. We're prepared, and then we try to do less, right? So we sort out the activities, and then we do what we do really, really good, and that's kind of the basis of our success. To have that focus and always be prepared, and I think that's. Like when we come back to investors, we we say something, we actually do it, and we do it with everything we have. So I think that's one of our success factors.
Building on focus, one main topic is, of course, the investments in sort of the infrastructure piece. And maybe some people who listens don't really understand why you just can't be an investor, invest in the farm, right? But it's not that easy. So just given that, but it's also, I know it's a clear plan why not to become a farmer, but it's not that easy to become a farmer if you wanted to.
No.
Obviously, there is a lot of money.
I think from our perspective, like I said, we invest in the seafood value chain. We try to make the value chain more sustainable. Because we think the value chain is like, you can't always focus on the farming part. There's so much to take care of in the whole value chain. And of course, like to have capital exposure towards farming, that opportunity you have in the stock market.
Yeah.
So the investors are like, okay, you invest in salmon farms in the stock market, but a value chain, you don't have that opportunity in the stock market. So that makes it perfect for a private equity structure. Because I'm giving people exposure to companies they can't get exposure to themselves. So and that makes the thesis very, very strong. Because it's hard to say like I will put your money in the stock market, right? It's why should you do that?
Definitely. Well, when you're trying to get the deals done, it seems like there has to be an interesting dynamic, because probably if a company is desperate to sell to you, maybe that could be not the best sign in the world, right?
Yeah.
But it's also like maybe the company you want is not for sale. So talk a bit about how that dynamic works, because there has to be a seller and a buyer. And of course, I don't know if this goes for the infrastructure piece, but it has to be fair to say that in seafood, it's a lot of family-owned company, right? So how does that dynamic work? Finding the right companies, but also convincing them to sell.
That's like one of the things that are hard, and why it takes so much time. And why it was like why my background was relevant, because when I started up as a consultant, I met a lot of companies, so I had a lot of relationships with family-owned companies, and that started off when I was 24. So or even actually before that. I actually looked back at my resume the other day, and I saw that I was actually punching sea lice in a database when I was 13. So I had to start. I started like. Kind of present that more, but one of the like that relationship goes way back, and our first investment in this fund, which was Reddox, which was actually a company where I was cleaning the office of the owner of Reddox when I was in high school, so I knew him from then. So a lot of this goes way back. So you can't just call someone and say, I want to buy your company. You have to build relationships over time. And then you have to also show that you can create value for them, that you actually have something to bring to the table. And that needs to be more than capital. It can't be capital, because then you have a lot of opportunities as a business owner. You have to bring something more to the table. And we invest in partnerships. And since we invest as a partner, it's always very good to have a good working relationship, and how can we do diligence a relationship? Okay, it's to talk to them over time. So okay, you said that like last year, what did you do this year? Okay, you're actually a guy who delivers what you promise, and then we build a relationship over time. So I have to so my job is basically talking to a lot of companies, even though they're not investable right now, but maybe they will be sometimes in the future, or maybe they'll never be. So there are very, very few investments which comes knocking on your door. You have to go out and hunt, and that hunting takes time. It can take years. Sometimes you're lucky, but often it takes a very, very long time.